Oh god, I don't know if anyone's gonna listen to the disclaimer here, but please remember that this series mostly runs on requests, and I don't hate most of the rappers I do in this series. Don't make your favorite rapper's fanbase look like shit by leaving a comment with piss poor grammar and calling me a hater before you even watch the video. Thanks for listening, and let's get right into it. It's about fucking time, boys. Here we go. The video that was supposed to be episode 2 of Worst Rappers in the Game. We finally got to it. It took me about 8 episodes to actually get it done, but we're finally here. So Migos is a rap trio originating from Lawrenceville, Georgia, and it consists of 3 members. Those members being Takeoff, Offset, and Quavo, and they're actually all related. They also have the weirdest fucking names in real life. Quavius Marshall, Kiare Cephas, Kershnik Ball. Interesting, man, interesting. They mostly blew up off of their hit single Versace and have went on to have a lot of success since then. So as research for this video, I checked out 3 of their projects. Those projects being YRN, released in 2013, No Label 2, released in 2015, and Culture, released in 2017. So we have a really good mix there. Also, at the end of the video, I'm going to explain why I am not doing a Best Rappers in the Game series. But with all that being said, guys, this is CDTVProductions, and today we're going to be asking the question, are the Migos the worst rappers in the game? Let's find out.
You niggas be biting my style and I like it, but you niggas know you ain't rapping like this. Trendsetter, I'm a trendsetter. Like in the mouth like a Mayweather. And don't look like it's a homeless shelter. She popping that molly like Alka-Seltzer.
And for part 1, we're gonna be looking at their voices. Now the best thing about Migos is the fact that there is 3 members, so you're bound to find at least one of them that you like. For me, my favourite in terms of voice alone is definitely Takeoff, just because he sounds so damn different to Offset and Quavo. His voice is really distinct and you can tell when it's him without a doubt. Takeoff is the one with the really deep ass, kind of slurred voice. He almost sounds like what I imagine Future would sound like if Future's voice wasn't so fucked up. His voice fits in really well on a lot of their darker, downbeat tracks, such as on Brown Paper Bag.
Flash, Jullo, give me glass. Flash. Never look back in my past. I sip slow and live fast. I ended up in first place, but I swore a nigga started last.
I really love Takeoff's voice, but sometimes he can be harder to understand due to his slurring. For example, on the track Hannah Montana, his vocals sound really slurred and it doesn't really sound that good.
If it roll in the court, passing out mileage to force. They popping on like let some skittles, 2 bitches want me. Make them in the middle. Hop off in the new Bugatti. Camera flashing paparazzi.
I'm also genuinely surprised that he is the youngest member in the group. He does not sound like it. I think he said he was 19 when they made No Label 2. That is fucking ridiculous. He sounds like he's 30. Overall, I mostly like Takeoff's voice, and he's the one that stood out to me the most just due to his voice. As for Offset, to me he sounded like the youngest one in the group, especially on their earlier projects. Like, his voice kind of sounds like it's got a bit deeper towards Culture, but on their earlier projects he definitely sounded like the younger one, even though Quavo has the highest voice. However, Offset is the middle-aged one and he's like 3 years older than Takeoff. To be honest, he doesn't have anything too unique in his voice, but I like it because he's the most normal sounding in the group. It also means it's hard for me to choose examples where I love his voice or where I hate it, because I think his voice is just good. I do feel like he probably adds the most inflection to his voice though and manages to make it pretty interesting. This can be shown on his verse in Handsome and Wealthy.
Is it my looks or is it my wealth or is it the way that I carry myself? Let me know, I need some help. Don't keep that secret to yourself. Bitch, you be saying I'm making funny cause a young nigga got a lot of money.
Not a bad voice by any means. For me, Quavo, who seems to be the most popular member, actually had the worst voice out of the 3. And it's not necessarily bad, but a lot of the time I find it kind of boring because, and this is especially true for the Culture album, he has a fairly generic Atlanta rapper voice kind of sound to it. He almost kind of reminds me of Gucci Mane with his voice and the way he pronounces shit, which for me is not a great thing. His voice is a bit higher than the other 2 though, so again, after you hear a couple songs, you can easily distinguish between all the members. I think examples of tracks where he doesn't sound great to me would be on songs like Deads. I have the same issue with this song as I do with Quavo on most of Culture. He just sounds so bored and more generic than he usually does.
Oh, count up the dead. Fresh out of the bed. Count up the dead. Bow, bow. We heard what you said. We heard what you said. If I wasn't trapped.
However, it is better on their earlier project, No Label 2. His voice sounded a lot more energetic on that album and he was rapping with ambition. He definitely sounds better when he tries to put some effort into his delivery. Honestly, overall as a group, I do quite like the different voices within Migos. They sound good for the style that they do. My only complaints are that they can sound pretty generic sometimes, and Quavo can sound really boring on quite a few tracks. I'll go with a 7 out of 10 here as a collective score for them all. I think that's a good average for how I feel about them all voice-wise. And yes, I will be ranking them all collectively for the ratings here because, you know, it's all about, this video is about them as a group. If one person, you know, does bad, they pull the rest of the group down, so I'm not gonna give them individual ratings each. And now for part 2, we're gonna be looking at their flow. Now we all know that Migos helped to bring back the triplet flow. Please note that they didn't invent it, which has been around since the 80s in rap. It's kind of hard for me to describe what it is, but I love when they use it, and it has a really kind of bouncy feel to it. It works really well, and it's a style that they have pretty much mastered. The most obvious example of this type of flow is on the song Versace.
Versace, Medusa head on me like Illuminati. I know that you like it. Versace, my neck and my wrist is so sloppy. Versace, I love it. Versace, the top.
I absolutely hate that song, but the flow is catchy as hell. Another example of their triplet flow can be found throughout the song Contraband on Takeoff's verse. I'm not 100% sure, like I didn't count it up, but I'd say Takeoff probably uses the triplet flow the most. And while I thought it would get boring, it honestly didn't really bug me at all. It's got such a nice cadence and rhythm to it that it works really nicely. One thing I was really surprised by was Offset's flow throughout most of No Label 2. See, Offset didn't really stand out to me on Culture, but on No Label 2, he came hard on like almost all of his verses. I was legit waiting for Offset's verses to come on that album. For example, I fucking loved his flow on Kidding Me.
Niggas stop playing with me. All of you niggas, you mimic me. You kidding me? Nah, literally. Controlling the block with good quality. Hurricane in the kitchen, a catastrophe. I'm number one, you other niggas.
The way he also managed to fit the ad-libs into his flow there is great, and that verse is so good. I honestly think Takeoff and Offset flow pretty great on the majority of tracks. However, again for me here, Quavo is the weakest link. He's not bad at all in terms of his flow, but for me he just doesn't do anything too spectacular with his flow that often. And on the track Where Were You, he dragged out the syllables at the end of each line way too long, and it just sounded bad.
Plug in China, I have to meet this man. Meet him. Choppers imported from Kazakhstan.
However, I really liked his flow on Built Like Me. I swear he sounds a bit like T.I. on that track. Overall, I really am a big fan of the way Migos flows, and I only have some minor issues with them. I also think it's worth mentioning I absolutely can't stand all of their flows on T-Shirt. It's that broken up, jumpy, choppy flow, and I hate that kind of flow. But like I said, they're mostly good in this aspect, so I'm gonna give them an 8 out of 10 here. Not doing bad at all so far. Now for part 3, we're gonna be looking at their lyrics. Now here's where, as always, things get a little bit more negative. I know turn up or trap rappers in the mainstream don't commonly focus on lyrics, but it'd be nice to see rappers that don't sacrifice lyrics for the sake of a turn up track. But anyways, let's talk about this. So I think the first thing I've got to say about Migos' lyrics is holy shit, they are repetitive as fuck sometimes, and it gets really annoying on a lot of tracks. Main examples of this are the hooks and sometimes the verses for Versace, Hannah Montana, Contraband, Chinatown, Peekaboo, Eminem's, Dead's.
Versace, 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 Versace. Hannah Montana, Hannah Montana, Hannah Montana, Hannah Montana, Hannah Montana, Chinatown, Chinatown, Chinatown. Eminem, 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 Eminem. Fresh out the bed, can out the dead, fresh out the bed,
And that's just to name a few. I'm sure there are more examples. Now, repetitiveness is perfectly fine occasionally, because it can make a song catchier overall and make it stick in your head more. But unfortunately, Migos can be so repetitive sometimes that it just sounds like they run out of shit to say too quickly, and go for the easiest option, which is repeating the same phrase or word over and over. As for their wordplay game, it's not really all that strong, honestly. Most of the time they don't have bad lines, but they just have painstakingly mediocre ones. For example, on YRH, Quavo says,
Chasing the cheese macaroni.
Jesus Christ, that's basic. Then I'm pretty sure Quavo also messes up a line where he mistakenly says Larry Houdini instead of Harry Houdini. There could be some sort of weird deeper meaning behind that, but I feel like it's probably just a fuck up. Also on the hook for Freak No More, he says, please do not try to run game on me, I'm not a PlayStation. Please do not try to run game on me, I'm not a 360. Basic as fuck. But who needs good lyrics when you can just shout a shit ton of ad-libs, right? However, I will give them some credit. The whole metaphor on the song FEMA about whipping up a hurricane with their wrist was nice. I'll give them a 3 out of 10 for this. There's nothing amazing at all really, but it's not a huge issue, and you really have to fuck up badly to get lower than a 3 in this segment. And for part 4, we're gonna be looking at their beat selection. Damn, the beats these guys select are pretty damn solid overall. They choose a nice variety of sounds and definitely expand more instrumentally on Culture, with beats on the songs such as Get Right With You or What the Price, which have a flute instrumental and a guitar instrumental respectively, and they sound great. They also have a lot of Zaytoven beats, so you already know I love those, like the beat on Big on Big.
Big on big.
Zay always makes my favorite piano melodies, and they sound great here as always. Them working with Zaytoven a fair bit definitely works very well for me. Another beat I loved was the one on Chinatown. YRN probably isn't my favorite album in terms of the production, but this beat was amazing. That's the style of southern trap beats that I really like. The beat for Deads was also great at building up the energy on that track, especially on the bridge to the hook. Another one I loved was the beat for Slippery. It's just so fitting, there's no other way to describe it than, well, slippery.
Pop a perky just to start up. Pop it. Pop 2 cups of purple just to warm up. 2 cups. Drink. I heard your bitch, she got that water.
With its bass and like sliding synths. They really don't have much bad production that I can think of. However, there is one very specific example of fucking awful production that I have to mention. The beat for their track Bando is just god awful.
Trapping out the house. Trapping out the house with the boys on the wonders. Trapping.
I honestly don't think I've heard them over a cheaper sounding instrumental. It sounds like a bootleg trap beat. Those horns sound like they're from a fucking Nintendo 64 game, and the chanting sound effect in the drum pattern just sounds awful. I was genuinely surprised when I heard this track, because they usually have incredible production. Also, I'm not really a fan of when they use that DJ Mustard style production, like on Fight Night or All Ass. They're not necessarily bad beats, but definitely not suited to Migos. However, overall, I think they work with some dope producers. I'm gonna give them an 8.5 out of 10 here. This is where the people who left comments calling me a hater look retarded, because I am praising the fuck out of Migos right now. They have genuinely surprised me so far. And for the final part, we're gonna be rating part 5. We're gonna be looking at my overall enjoyment of all the albums I checked out from them. So for this video, I checked out 3 projects, and those were YRN, No Label 2, and Culture. I felt like this was a great way to see how they've evolved. As for my enjoyment, I'm not gonna lie, I was genuinely surprised. I like these guys way more than I thought I would. I've hated so many of the singles that they've dropped, and Versace is one of my least favorite rap songs, period. But goddamn, their projects are fun as fuck to listen to. The one I definitely liked here the most was No Label 2, followed by Culture, and then my least favorite was YRN. For me, No Label 2 was an incredible mixtape, and holy shit, they're actually going hard on this one. Like, lyrically, they're not ripping shit apart here, but their flows are ridiculous on here, and they actually rap like they have passion on it. Now, it's 20 tracks long, so there is a little bit of filler here and there, but for the most part, I love this, and I'm gonna come back to this one a lot in the future. Not to mention, Offset murdered all of his verses here. As for my second favorite, Culture was pretty good to me, but it wasn't incredible. I think it started off pretty terribly, like I wasn't sucked in until like 4 or 5 tracks in, but it got a lot better after that. The second half was pretty great, and Takeoff was the standout member to me on this project. I also like that they tried out some different instrumentals on here. And then we get to my least favorite, which is YRN, which honestly I wasn't a fan of. It was at best a mediocre project for me. It was definitely their most stereotypical trap sounding project that I heard from them, and I just wasn't feeling it. It has a really kind of, a lot of places it has a cheapish kind of vibe to it, and even from the cover art looks cheap as well. It did have some great tracks though, like Rich Than Famous and Adios, but there were too many skippable and uninteresting tracks on here. However, overall I was pretty happy with how this turned out. I've probably found rappers here that I'm gonna check out a fair bit in the future, and most of of what I heard was good, I'm gonna go with an 8 out of 10 here. Definitely more than what I expected. And now finally, I'm gonna be giving you my overall verdict and ranking of Migos. So overall here, Migos gets a score of 35.5 out of 50. This is a pretty damn great score and places them at the 3rd best rappers we've looked at in this series so far, putting them far above Lil Yachty and just slightly below Rae Sremmurd. And that definitely reflects how I feel about them. I can say with confidence they are not one of the worst rappers in the game. The top 3 just now are rappers that I love. Travis Scott, Rae Sremmurd and Migos, they're all great and I actually can listen to them regularly. Now, I do still think Migos are quite a bit overrated by a bunch of hype beasts nowadays, and their use of ad-libs is pretty excessive to the point of it being comedic, but they are still great artists. I was definitely surprised by this one, and I am happy I finally got to make this long-awaited episode. And I'm still wondering if anyone will be able to take that worst rapper spot from Kodak. Well guys, thank you so much for watching. That is going to be it for the video today, and I hope you guys all enjoyed it. So as I said at the start, I'm going to be explaining kind of here why I'm not doing a Best Rappers in the Game series. I already explained it before in my 35k Q&A that I did a long time back, but the main reason for it was that it would make it a lot harder to decide who would go on what list, because I don't hate the rappers I do on Worst Rappers in the Game most of the time. A lot of the time I actually like the rappers I do on Worst Rappers in the Game, and it would be kind of hard to keep track of 2 separate lists. Like, who goes on Best Rappers in the Game, who goes on Worst Rappers in the Game. It would be hard to decide, and also discography ranked videos are pretty much already the videos I do for rappers that I like, so I don't see the point in having another video for the rappers that I like. And as I've said before, this doesn't rule out the possibility of a most underrated rappers in the game, but no matter what, I will not be doing a Best Rappers in the Game series. So I hope you guys understand. I don't know if I explained it that well there, that was just kind of off the top of my head, but it's just a series that I'm not really interested in doing. As always guys, make sure to follow me on Snapchat, Twitter and Instagram under the username CDTVProductions. And also, massive shout out to my Patreon supporters, Patrick Guzman, Anders Olesen, NLB Brazzy, Kyle Taylor, Rob Jarvis, Glenn Newman, Charlie Taylor and Dane Kirkpatrick. You guys all voted for this episode, and I'm pretty sure I finished editing it in time, so you've probably already seen it a day early. Thank you for the support, guys. Well, that's all I've got to say for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed, please leave a like. Please subscribe if you have not done so already, and I will hopefully see you guys all in the next episode. I hope this one lived up to the hype. And just let me know if you have any suggestions for who you want me to do next in this series. Thank you so much for watching, and this is CDTV Productions, signing out.